I'm Rochelle Jackson. I am a lifelong resident of North Lawndale. We'd like to welcome you to the North Lawndale community. You are in the Douglas Park Cultural Field House. What do we call it? The Field House. And I have a script here, so I can barely see it. But I want to let everybody know this presentation is going to be recorded, and we want to acknowledge the presence of 24th Ward Alderwoman Scott. And First Ward Alderman Laspacha. Is that how you pronounce your name? Daniel Laspacha. Okay. And we'd like to thank Douglas Park and the staff for letting us come in and hosting this meeting tonight, in addition to the community leaders from across North Lawndale invited to our neighborhood for this meeting. I'm sorry, the script writing is really small, so I can't really see it. So we have some slides here. Am I not? Okay. I apologize. So our agenda is our community voices, CDOT updates, knowledge sharing presentation for the Ogden Avenue Streetscape, partner project introduction, public engagement initiative, IDOT, community tables overview, community tables breakout, conversations, regroup, announcements, and the close of the meeting. Next slide. Today's goals. We want to make new connections and identify opportunities for partnerships, inform the public on key CDOT projects, traffic safety data, traffic safety strategies, advance conversations and efforts identified at past community tables, discuss opportunities for actions and advocacy efforts. Next slide. The CMC goal. The goal of the Chicago Mobility Collaborative is to establish a forum for meaningful participation where collaboration is encouraged, learning is facilitated, partnerships are fostered, and where Chicagoans have a voice in the decision-making that impacts them. Community agreements of engagement. Listen actively to understand others' views and perspectives. One person speaks at a time. Seek clarity, avoid making assumptions, be accountable for your words and their impact. Your experience is valuable and unique and is worth sharing. Provide constructive criticism of ideas and projects, not of individuals. Next one. Community voices. So now I will introduce my alderwoman, my favorite alderperson for the 24th Ward ever since I've been born, Ms. Monique Scott.
Good evening. I'll be
Right there in the X, just so you're
I forgot we're being filmed. I'm sorry. So I'll be brief, but I just want to welcome everybody to the 24th Ward. I think that this is a meaningful and collaborative meeting. I am a bike rider. I ride my bike every morning from Ogden all the way to Douglas and Ridgeway to Independence and Harrison, back around. So it gives me like, I'm not as great as Alderman Laspacha, but it gives me at least 5 miles a day. Because then, you know, if you look, we've just paved the park, all through the park, so I get to ride through the park as well to make up my 5-something miles. So I do this every day. I'm happy. I'm excited about. I'm always calling, begging for additional bike lanes because safety. You know, I'm one of those ones that ride against the traffic because I'm fearful of the cars, even with the bike lane. So if I'm in your way in the morning and you do ride, I apologize, but I have to go against the traffic just for my safety. But I think that these kind of meetings are meaningful because we want to hear what the community has to say. I'm an advocate of all things safety in our community and really just creating these safe spaces and what's needed in the community, I think, that are important. So I wanted to give you all just a nice quick welcome, and let's dive into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Scott. And now I will turn this over to David Smith. So David is next.
Thank you, Rochelle. Alderwoman Scott, thank you. Chairman LaSpada, great to see you as always. Thank you everybody for coming out. My name's David Smith with the Chicago Department of Transportation. And you know, really excited to be here in North Lawndale. As Alderwoman Scott talked about, you know, we've had a great partnership with the 24th Ward and the community in terms of building up safe streets that are more accessible, comfortable, and safer for walking and biking. That's been a really big issue. And North Lawndale was actually one of the first communities where we really piloted a really innovative program called the Neighborhood Bike Networks, where we got together. Rochelle was a part of this, along with many others, where we really planned out what a cycling network could look like and should be, and how it would be meaningful for the community, connecting people to important destinations like the Cultural Center that we're here at today. So that was a really powerful program that resulted in basically the installation of 15 miles or so of new bike infrastructure within the North Lawndale community within the course of about a year or 18 months, including protected bike lanes on the boulevard system. We've come back just recently, upgraded those with concrete curbs on Independence and Douglas into Sacramento down into the park. So that process has really, or that experience in North Lawndale has really ignited the spark for this movement of developing connected cycling networks that really get people to the places that are most meaningful and the most familiar to them. So it's really short trips, getting to the park, getting to the local business, getting to school, or getting your kid to school. And that's been incredibly powerful. And we've seen that. I know I've got a slide here, which we'll get to in a second, but really showing how the cycling within Chicago is growing faster than any other large city in the US, and it's really been incredible to see that, and I know you guys have seen that too. I think we go to the next slide. So just kind of zooming out, Alderwoman mentioned it, you know, traffic safety, the ability for our family, our friends, our neighbors to get to everywhere that they need to go to comfortably and get there safely is critically important and top of mind. And as you guys know, and as we've talked about before, across the entire country during really the height of COVID in 2020, 2021, there was a really dramatic spike in the most serious traffic crashes, those in which somebody was seriously injured or lost their life. And that was true in Chicago, and that was true across the entire country. We've really seen a lot of progress in terms of those traffic fatalities numbers coming down. We've seen a really dramatic decrease in the last 2 years, about a 30% decrease in the number of traffic fatalities. And that really kind of outpaces the country as a whole and many of our peer cities. I was on a call earlier this week with many of the big cities around the country. We get together and talk about Vision Zero and traffic safety, and we're kind of going over where things stand in different cities. And there was a lot of attention and a lot of interest in what we're doing here in the city of Chicago, because we're really seeing a little bit of a different trend in that downward trend versus other cities. Now that's not, all that is to say that there's a ton more work to do. We feel a sense of urgency, and I really appreciate the partnerships here between city department, elected officials, and you guys to really make our streets safer and to really see that downward trend continue. There's a lot of work to do. The next slide, this is, it's hard to read here. This is a snapshot from our website. If you go to chicago.gov/complete streets or chicago.gov/traffic safety, that'll take you to, you'll make your way to this page. This is something that, if you guys are interested, we post this on a monthly basis. It's a recap of traffic fatalities around the city, mapping them out where they're occurring, a brief description of what occurred in the crash, and then we assign these really common crash typologies that we're seeing. So speeding being a huge one, disobeying traffic signals and stop signs, reckless driving, large vehicles is something that we're watching very closely for a number of reasons. So, so this information is posted monthly and would encourage people to check it out. It's a really good resource. Talk about a couple of projects. There's a really exciting project with CDOT and the community and Alderwoman Scott on Independence Boulevard to install a new pathway system. The pathway is in place, basically, I think, around Polk and Taylor. Right now, it's going to continue to be extended, additional landscaping and everything, but it's really an effort to activate the boulevard system, which is such a great asset within the community. The Douglas Boulevard side has a really nice walking path that people can hang out on and enjoy, and so that'll extend the path on Independence going north. And again, as I mentioned, that really complements and highlights the protected bike lanes that we installed on the boulevard system over the last couple of years. So just a couple of photos. This is, like I said, between roughly Polk and Taylor right now, but this construction is going to continue on throughout the year. Speaking of the boulevard system too, I'll just plug our friend, partner, Jonathan Kelly from the Lawndale Pop-Up Spot has done a really great job of organizing community events and street closures on Douglas Boulevard. So we've worked together with Alderwoman Scott to close down several blocks of Douglas Boulevard to car traffic and open it up to people to come out and celebrate. And this occurs, I know there was one last weekend, which sounds like it was really successful. There's going to be another 5 or so over the course of this summer. And so we're kind of partnering together, close down the street to car traffic. This is occurring on Douglas between Central Park and Lawndale in front of Stone Temple Church. And so there's a lot of great community programming. So if you're interested, talk to Jonathan in the blue shirt for all the dates. I can't remember them offhand, but there's another 5 or so coming up. We've been doing this the last couple of years, and it's just been really incredibly successful and a great opportunity for people to come out and experience what our streets can be when it's not focused purely on moving automobile traffic, but really designed for people to enjoy really the largest asset in the city, which is our public space. The next one, Damon Green Line. This is under construction. I don't know the exact timing of when this is going to be completed, but this is a major rail transit project with a new station close to the United Center. Okay, so highlight a really cool project that some of you may have heard about or many of you have been following. Chicago and Halsted is getting reconstructed starting later this year, early next year. We had a public information meeting last week, I think it was, where we presented a kind of a revised and design that incorporated a lot of really cool elements, including dedicated transit lanes on Chicago Avenue through the Halsted intersection and to the east and to the west, and linking up with bus lanes that have been existing. Also including some really nice bike improvements on Halsted, which I'll get to in a second. But in advance of that project, we actually started striping new dedicated transit lanes on Chicago, both east and west of Halsted in the last couple of weeks. So that work is ongoing and it'll finish up in the next couple of weeks. Additionally, between Sangamon and Larrabee, right around Halsted, we're also in process or just wrapping up between Western and Grand in Humboldt Park. And so that'll extend the existing bus lanes from Ashland to Western. That'll continue going west to Grand. So basically from Grand to Michigan, we have some sort of dedicated transit lane. It's about 4 miles for the whole way. There's one exception or one gap between Ashland and Milwaukee, which we're working on, looking at in partnership with CTA, but really looking at that closely. That'll be coming out along soon, but very exciting to see the Chicago Avenue corridor, which is a really important transit corridor for many people, many communities, really see that come along and make a lot of progress. So we're very excited about that. That's going to continue. If you go to the next slide, this is kind of a zoom in of the Chicago and Halsted intersection, which is today a very big, chaotic, uncomfortable intersection for everybody. So there's a lot of really cool improvements that'll be incorporated into the reconstruction project. And including, as I mentioned, dedicated bus lanes on Chicago Avenue. That'll continue east over the Chicago River and over the bridge, and then west to connect into the existing bus lanes. On Halsted, we've got raised bike lanes that are at the same level of the sidewalk, so protected bike lanes that are elevated up. At the intersection itself, the corners, it's a little hard to see here in the background, but these black lines will be the new corner, or the new designs of the corners with the project. Basically here is the existing curb line on this intersection as an example. So we're really shrinking the intersection, shortening the crossing distance for a pedestrian by 30 to 40%, slowing down right and left turns that will really make the intersection safer and more comfortable for everyone. So I think the changing of the curb lines, the shrinking of the intersection is really a huge benefit, particularly for people walking. In addition to the elevated bike lanes, we've got some nice bus stops on Halsted, where the bus will, kind of like priority bus stops, where the bus stops in the travel lane. The bike lane will be routed behind the bus stop, so there's no conflict from the bus pulling into the bike lane. Pedestrians have the sidewalk space, bike space, and then there'll be a space to get off, on and off the bus. So this will really make it easier for the bus to deploy the ramp, get people on and off who are in a wheelchair, stroller, that kind of thing. So this is a very exciting project. It's been a long project. I know, definitely see a few faces here who have been very involved in the meetings, and really appreciate the partnership on this. Very excited where this is going. So there'll be more info on this coming up over the course of the summer and everything, but this is something that I think is going to start late this year, more likely early next year in terms of construction. Okay, I mentioned in the beginning some of the work we've done here in North Lawndale, but other communities as well, also South Lawndale, Little Village area, this neighborhood bike network process and strategy, where we're working hand in hand with the community and sort of working backwards. Really the last thing we start talking about are streets. The first thing we start talking about is what's the perception, what's the culture around transportation, what are the barriers, what are the opportunities within the neighborhood, both physical barriers like a viaduct, or sort of like invisible barriers, where really the only types of things that you would know if you really are ingrained in the community and if you live here. And so we've really seen a lot of success with that effort. The goal is to expand the tent, bring in people who are working on issues of public health, mental health, youth engagement, local businesses, economic development, sustainability, public safety, and really talk about and better understand the connection and the relationship between biking, walking, transit, safe streets, and all these really important quality of life issues that are top of mind for people. When we talk about a protected bike lane or shortening the crossing distance at an intersection, it's not just about providing a couple of feet of space for somebody to ride a bike or to get you across the street, but it's about creating a community that is welcoming to everybody and achieving a larger set of goals. All of these issues are interrelated. If you think about the issues that are really top of mind for most people, most families, affordability, access to employment, education, kids, public safety, all of these issues have a very strong and inherent relationship to transportation and the ability to walk, bike, to move around our streets and our public spaces safely. So by really focusing in on creating safe streets, we're helping dramatically to achieve a much larger set of quality of life goals. And what we've seen in Chicago has been incredibly exciting over the last several years. Some of you have seen this graphic that was put out, but it really lines up well with what we're seeing in terms of other data points. Number of Divvy bike trips, scooter trips, what we see, out on the streets. So many people biking, cargo bikes, electric scooters. It keeps growing every couple of years. There's something new out there. And so what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years is more than doubling in the number of bicycle trips during the average weekday. That leads the nation in terms of growth since the pre-pandemic to today. And I think that's going to continue, that's going to keep going on as we continue to roll out really nice infrastructure, and as we continue to develop and capitalize on partnerships with community organizations, elected officials, other departments, other agencies, and everybody here tonight. And we're seeing that growth, that's fine, we're seeing the growth happen in every neighborhood across the city. And it really lines up well with our Chicago cycling strategy, which we released a year ago, which is really looks at focuses on expanding the bicycle network, both at the citywide scale, so that we have a network that spans the entire city. No matter what neighborhood you live in, you can ride a bike comfortably and safely, but also is intensely focused on those local connections, getting people to parks and schools. And you see that in some of these metrics with why people are biking, where are they going, why are they using a bike, shopping, retail, dining is really leading the way in why people are riding a bike. So there's a really nice alignment between the strategy, partnerships, and the results that we're seeing. The next slide shows, this is a map on for our neighborhood bike network process. We started this, like I said, in North Lawndale, moved south into South Lawndale, Little Village, across Ogden, which I think Vanessa and Cody will talk about in a minute. And we've had a ton of really good installations in South Lawndale as well. We've got another few that are planned and underway. And then we've continued that work across the shipping canal to the south in the Brighton Park, McKinley Park, Gage Park neighborhood. And so over the course of the last 9 months, year or so, we're working really closely with community partners in those neighborhoods to plan out the cycling network. And so we've got some very exciting installations in this area, which we'll be announcing in more detail very soon. But really the idea is to connect. You'll have a really nice connection between North Lawndale, South Lawndale, Brighton Park, going through a lot of really tough barriers like the Shipping Canal Expressway and many others. While I'm looking at this map, I'll also mention here in the 24th Ward, Saucedo Elementary School on 24th Boulevard, and between Marshall and California, very big elementary school, lots of kids walking to the school. Worked with Alderwoman Scott, the principal of the school, have some very exciting pedestrian and bike improvements happening. That's just getting started now. We'll have raised crosswalks, pedestrian islands, curb protected bike lanes. That's all under construction. Right now it's just getting started. But that is really a great improvement for the community and also ties into a larger theme that at CDOT we're really focused on, which is improving accessibility and traffic safety around schools and parks. And so we're doing that really all over the city. We've got a lot of really cool improvements happening around Portage Park Elementary and Portage Park, including some raised elements, some raised crossings and pedestrian improvements. Nash Elementary in the West Garfield, Austin neighborhood off of Cicero, around Cicero and Erie. So that's a program that we're continuing to develop, but schools and parks is really a focus of where we're going in the future. Okay, next. Okay, so I think this is my last slide, and there's so many updates and so many exciting things that I want to share that I'm way over time when we don't have time for. But if you have questions or want to chat, just grab me. I'll be here the whole time. There's just so many really cool projects and really cool initiatives happening all across the city. This is a couple of photos. This is Clark Street in the River North neighborhood downtown. We've got a protected bike lane that's under construction. Again, pedestrian improvements. This is from Oak down to Grand right now. And that's basically where Clark Street converts to a one-way street southbound. So this is under construction as we speak. Curb protected bike lanes, pedestrian refuge space, bike signals at some of the intersections. This should be completed in the next month or so, but this will serve as a couplet to the Dearborn protected bike lane, which goes northbound north of Kinsey. So I think that's all. Okay, so again, thank you for being here. Look forward to the conversations at the tables, but really appreciate the partnerships with everyone. I think that's been really a key to the success that we've been having and will continue to have in the coming years. So thank you.
Hi, good evening. How's everyone doing? Nice to see so many familiar faces. Hi. I know some of you. My name is Vanessa Irizarry. I'm the project manager for the Ogden Avenue Corridor Improvements Project. My tendency is to lower my voice as we speak. So if you don't hear me, please let me know and I will try to project a little better. I'm here with the managing project engineer, Cody Machen from CDOT as well. And we were asked to come here, so thank you for having us, to give a brief update of what we've done to date on the project. We've had a lot of conversations with community. We've had a public meeting, 3 workshops, stakeholder meetings, so I will do my best at summarizing in 10 minutes. So we will try. First slide. You cannot see some of that up there, but that's okay. So the goal of the project is to reactivate neighborhood centers that have historically served as focal points for pedestrian activity, economic activity, shopping, services, transportation, and quality of life amenities for residents. This project is an opportunity to reimagine Ogden Avenue as a multimodal transportation corridor, as a hub for community activity, and a catalyst for economic development. The boundaries of the project are Pulaski to Roosevelt on Ogden, and Ogden Avenue is a state route under IDOT jurisdiction, the Illinois Department of Transportation, and the service drives are under CDOT's jurisdiction. So that creates a little bit of complexity on our project development. This is a streetscape project, which consists of infrastructure, pedestrian safety, and placemaking improvements. Oop, I tend to do that too. Wow. With the goal of creating unified, safe, walkable, and attractive streets. The project is comprehensive and includes public right-of-way improvements from building phase to building phase. We include public outreach, placemaking, urban design strategy, concept design engineering, detailed design engineering, and construction as part of this effort. So it goes from sort of concept development to construction. Next slide. Here you can see some of the scope within our project, which includes a variety of improvements, such as street geometry, drainage improvements, sidewalk improvements, road resurfacing, pavement markings, new lighting, landscaping, sitting areas, curb extensions, intersection improvements, and corridor identity items such as light pole identifiers and gateway identifiers. Next slide. So this is kind of our timeline. We want to recognize that the planning for this project is a continuation of the work that the North Lawndale community has been working on for a long time. The team wants to build on this work to develop the concepts and improvements and incorporating the input from the community on what they know to date. We want to acknowledge the 2018 NLCCC Quality of Life Plan. We've worked with Ms. Rochelle Jackson and many, many meetings for this project. This will have a strong influence on the project as we develop concepts and have our ongoing community engagement. As mentioned previously, Ogden is a state route, so we have to have a lot of coordination with the Illinois Department of Transportation and state and federal agencies. So as a result, it's a lengthy planning process, and the timeline for design is longer than usual. So we will not be starting construction till potentially 2026. That's the end of our timeline to the right that you can barely see. So we are eagerly in the design process for the Ogden Avenue project. Right now, the team is focused on gathering community feedback and developing those initial concepts. Next slide. As I said earlier, Ogden Avenue should really reflect the community's priorities and serve the community's needs. The team is committed to build on previous input, prioritize transparency, and engage with the community as often as possible. Project materials can be viewed on the project website, and everyone can sign up to receive updates. At the end of the presentation, we'll have a slide with the information for that website. We have a community advisory group composed of organizations from the community that we touch base with frequently. We also have had public meetings. We had one meeting. We are planning on having our second public meeting later this year. We've had topic-specific workshops. We'll get into the details of those in a little bit. We've had individual stakeholder meetings or focus groups around the community. Am I missing my square? Yes. Around things like transportation or corridor identity. The community really has a lot of specialized knowledge on different topics, so we want to sort of speak to everyone and make sure we're building that into our process. We have the website and a newsletter, and we've had one public survey, and soon we'll be coming up with our second public survey. So if you sign up, you will receive information on that. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we've had 3 community workshops to gather feedback. These workshops we thought would be very small. They were greatly attended. We thank your support, Alderwoman Scott. It was with like 80 people each workshop. So there were sort of 3 big community meetings. The first workshop in August of 2023 was around the corridor identity. We wanted to discuss potential corridor themes and generate ideas for the design of the identifier. We heard a lot of feedback in that workshop, so we had to revisit some of our themes, and we met with what we call a corridor history team as part of our stakeholder group, which has helped us define that further. We had a placemaking workshop in October of 2023 where we discussed potential placemaking opportunities and potential locations of even corridor identifiers, so places and identifiers. Our latest and the last workshop we had was on street design. That was earlier this year in January, and we discussed potential roadway configurations and concepts and trade-offs with placemaking opportunities in that design. Next slide. So the primary concern is safety, and intersections are generally perceived as dangerous for pedestrians and bicyclists. If you go into the website, you should be able to see some newsletters and what people are actually sort of telling us. So we're really hearing people loud and clear. We also have been hearing that Ogden Avenue is an important asset for North Lawndale. It not only connects North Lawndale to the city, but it's also part of Route 66, and it's historic. So we need to celebrate that, and we need to celebrate that at the same time that we're celebrating the North Lawndale community. So this way, this would generate a lot of opportunities for economic growth. At the same time, we will be actually improving the safety of the corridor. Next slide. And I've just gone off my script, but that's okay. So what we heard for the corridor identity was that we really should highlight North Lawndale and the Route 66 history as one theme. We should focus on the overall history of the community, the people that make up that community, the events and places, including Route 66 and the history of the corridor itself, and that played, so people, events, and places that played a role in the development of North Lawndale alongside Route 66. So that's our challenge. How do we sort of bring those two together? The design elements could potentially include historic references along the corridor of Route 66 and the overall North Lawndale community. So the next meeting, public meeting number 2, we'll start getting a little bit into sort of how we can do that, potential ways of doing that, and design elements that can help us exemplify this North Lawndale and Route 66 history. Next slide. So I won't get into a lot of this because I'm probably way close to my 10 minutes. Stay to some extra time away. So we have a toolbox that we know are sort of safety features that we can implement along different corridors that will improve traffic, pedestrian, transit users, cyclists, and vehicular safety along the corridors. And some of those that we are using for Ogden, of course, include curb extensions for shortening crossing distances, reducing speed of turning vehicles, improving pedestrian visibility, and that also allows for extra space for placemaking improvements. Raised crosswalks to increase pedestrian visibility, and it does encourage slower vehicle movement at those intersections on the side streets, and it makes it easier for pedestrians and cyclists to cross, especially if you have a bicycle lane that's on the sidewalk. Pedestrian refuge islands, again, sort of provides a place for pedestrians to stop as they're crossing the street, and it shortens that distance. Draws attention to the crosswalk, and it provides a place for pedestrians to sort of stop and wait for traffic to go by. Next slide. Bike facilities. So we're looking potentially at a raised to sidewalk level bike facility that it was separate from motorists. The thing about Ogden Avenue is that it's really wide, so we're trying to figure out what does that mean? How wide does it need to be for the traffic that's going through? What are the opportunities for placemaking and spaces for the community? But there's sort of what are the limitations, like parking. The service drives do have parking, and some of that parking is needed. So we're trying to sort of come up with a balance of what that means and what does the community want to see along Ogden. Bike facilities on the sidewalk provide a high comfort level, and of course keeps motorists away from entering the bike lane. Bus bulbs, it will be more space, of course, for waiting for the bus. It increases transit efficiency and allows for additional space for ADA accommodations and bus shelters. I wish I had some pictures of Ogden, but if you are familiar with Ogden Avenue, you actually have the bus stops, most of the bus stops sitting on the median, and the median is like 2 feet wide. So people are standing literally in the middle of what feels like a highway, waiting for the bus with nowhere to sit and basically almost nowhere to stand. Next slide. So here's just existing conditions. If, for those that are not familiar, we can just sort of go through it in general. There's very complex 3 signal intersections. Like I mentioned, there's limited bus space. Sometimes buses have to pull into the service drives and merge back into the main line, which creates a conflict. There's up to 4 lanes in each direction of the corridor, and there's unpredictable lane drops at some locations. We quite don't understand why sometimes, but that's the way it is. There's no plantings in the medians. It's an uninviting highway feel. There's no refuge space for pedestrians crossing all of those 4 lanes of Ogden, and there are no bicycle facilities. Next slide. So in the last workshop, we shared 2 concepts with the community, and we're going to call those Strategy 1 and Strategy 2. And I'm just going to go back to my notes here. There were 2 potential baseline design strategies that we presented, and both strategies use the tools that I spoke about earlier, but they do have some key differences. So I'm not sure where that double stuff is there, but I'll do my best to describe it. Strategy 1, which is the one that you see on the screen now, it maintains parking within the service drives. It improves safety for all roadway users. It adds a row of trees. Can I get closer? You see me if I go closer? Okay. Adds a row of trees in a furniture zone adjacent to the sidewalk. This is here. And provides a protected bike lane adjacent to the service drive parking. So that's the green line. It's on the way. That's the green line you see right here. There's just like that. Under this strategy, service drives can be closed and repurposed on a case-by-case basis, depending on parking needs and adjacent land uses. Service drive closures at selected locations can provide additional sidewalk space for pedestrian use and open spaces. I'm getting 5 minutes. I think it's our last slide. So strategy 2. Again, strategy 2 has the same baseline, but the service drives are closed and parking is relocated from the service drives to a parking lane adjacent to the main travel lane. The service drives are repurposed to provide more space for pedestrian use, landscape, and other placemaking amenities. Closing the service drives provide a wider landscaping zone and streetscape zone. This is what you see here. that could help activate the corridor, and where's my spot? Such as outdoor dining areas and public seating spaces. The space also allows for a landscape buffer to be added between the parking lane and the furniture zone, and it allows for a double row of trees instead of a single line of trees as shown in strategy 1 to be installed on either side of the bike lane. The city will be looking to get more feedback from the North Lawndale community on the preferred strategies to develop and refine concepts. So we're currently in those conversations with community. There's a survey that we're going to be sending out to really get additional feedback on which strategy the community prefers and how we balance all of these needs out. And I am done. So keep an eye out for public meeting number 2 invitation, the upcoming surveys. You can email comments to the project team, and then we can go to our website at improveogdenavenue.org. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sarah Moore. I'm from the Illinois Department of Transportation, Bureau of Safety Programs and Engineering. I'm the Safety Program Implementations Manager. My side of the Bureau oversees all of the programmatic traffic safety initiatives that come to us from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So side note, I'm here with our NHTSA rep for the state of Illinois, Casey Ray. Raise your hand again. And we're here because we are in charge of the non-infrastructure things, such as high visibility enforcement. So the roadside safety checks with police, community outreach, teaching, trainings, things like that. There's all sorts of different topics. And one of the things we've been noticing across the board is that across the nation, pedestrian fatalities have been increasing at a much more rapid rate than any other type of crash. So we started looking at this in Illinois a few years back, and it became even worse during 2020 during the COVID lockdown. And what we noticed is that especially communities in particular that have higher racial minorities and then higher poverty rates are more likely to have incidents of pedestrians getting killed or injured in crashes. So typically, this correlates directly to the fact that the populations are more likely to, the lower income is more tied to the jobs that had to show up in person, such as fast food and stuff, retail, etc. during COVID, as opposed to working from home. So what we did in my bureau is decided for the Triennial Highway Safety Plan for fiscal years 24 through 26 is to really drill down into those populations throughout Illinois, and let's start with 3 key areas. So based on the data, we took the overall populations. Obviously, Chicago had by far the highest rates, but we wanted to drill down to specific communities, and we found like 6 or 8 zip codes in particular. And North Lawndale happens to be within one of those zip codes of one of the highest rates of pedestrian crashes in Illinois. Peoria and Rockford are the other 2 locations that are the next highest, in case you're curious. So what we wanted to start doing is reaching out through public participation and engagement events such as this. We want to get hands-on feedback, qualitative feedback and data from the people who live in the communities so we can see what's actually going on. I can sit here, and nothing against the infrastructure folks, you're doing great. I can sit here and be like, oh, clearly you need to work on, space for pedestrian in the crosswalk in the middle or something. But there's other things going on. Maybe everyone's texting and driving, and that's why people feel like they need a safe haven while crossing the street, just in case. So what I'm here today with is, instead of a snazzy slideshow, I'm here with a QR code. This will take you to our my hair's strawberry blonde, so the blonde part's coming out right now. What?
Survey.
Yeah, it's a survey. Yeah, like it says. But it's going to allow you to provide feedback to us, and we can collect that data and actually get it from you on what we need to work on, focus on where things we can do. Now, even if some of that information does fall into the infrastructure side, that's fine, because guess what? The safety engineers work in my bureau, and the guy over all of them sits in the cubicle right next to me. So sharing that information is extremely easy, and the data will also be posted in our annual application. I'm sorry, what's it called? AGA.
Annual grant application.
I'm sorry. I am so used to talking in shorthand that sometimes I lose focus. So our AGA is going to have our data. We're going to be giving that to NHTSA. It will be publicly available. And then also, I do actually work with some folks at CDOT, and we like to share that data as well. So it's important to note that, unfortunately, there's been some silos between the infrastructure and programmatic side, and one of the things I'm trying to do in my position is to break down that barrier and really get both sides integrated. Sorry, I guess we're all just dancing over here. All right, so what I want to do is get this data and let's start some conversations. Let's get it shared with everyone on both sides, programmatic and infrastructure, and get as much. The more we know, the more we can help each other. So, all right, that's what I'm here for. I will be here throughout the remainder of the event. So if you have any questions, let me know. Yeah, and in the meantime, if you could fill this out, and I could also email you a copy of this later if you wanted to distribute it. All right, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Romina Castillo. I'm the Director of Outreach and Engagement at CDOT. And I'm here just to send you to the breakout rooms that you have been waiting for all night. So I'm just gonna go really quick to give you a reminder of what the tables are. Some of you might already be sitting at the tables that you want to be at, but you have also time to switch around and find the group that you really want to have a conversation with. So just a quick reminder. So we have the Better Streets for Transit table with Jen. Now we have Active Trans in the room, as well as and CNT over there, helping us facilitate the conversation. That is going to be focusing mostly on building the projects and the coalitions to make those projects happen. So really excited conversation. We have our Beyond the Bike Lane conversation with DB and also our scooter companies with David Poe in the back. So interested in micromobility, please join that conversation. They'll be discussing how we're building a better system together. Then we have table number 3, which is our hybrid table, and that will be with our Committee of Pedestrian and Traffic Safety, with Morgan in the back, Alderman Laspada, and Sophia. They'll be facilitating that conversation, and that's the conversation that everyone in the Zoom will be joining. And we have our feature project, Project Sidewalk, which is a really exciting tool about sidewalk audits. And Joe Hyde will be facilitating that in the back. And then finally, we have our table number 5, which will be a workshop, and it's really nice outside. No rain yet, so you would definitely enjoy that conversation. That will be with Jonathan Kelly, discussing street activations and placemaking. We want to hear back from every table. Let's just say 1 minute report back. Make sure that you elevate any main points from the conversation. Any next steps, if you got to that, any actions that your group is thinking, considering to take after this conversation. So we're gonna get started with table number 1, which was this one right here.
We ended up late and we had nearly 2,000 people. So at least in my group, we talked a little bit about some of the benefits and how we've improved the relationship between bus improvements and safety for pedestrians and bikers. So they're sort of have a symbiotic relationship. And so we talked about that as a benefit.
we had similar conversations. We talked a little bit about benefits for bus priority corridors, like the ones highlighted here. What are some ways to get the community on board, because there might also be some worries about that, and how the planning should be holistic, including like safety, bikes, accessibility, and things like that. In terms of next steps, I think we did talk a little bit about how there needs to be a pretty good popular education campaign to understand what bus priority corridors are, understand what bus rapid transit is, and move forward from there. So that's a very, very
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, table 1. We're going to move to table number 2.
All right, we talked about Divvy, Lime, and Spin scooters. And I think that our 3 actions and next steps were to retire the lightweight Divvy stations. We're working on it. Was to relax charging users for bringing a Divvy to a full Divvy station that they didn't know was full, and then they get charged for it. The city is coming up with a really awesome solution to that problem really soon that we've been working on with Lyft for the last couple of months. And the other thing was really just focusing on our expansion to make sure that the bike share and the scooter system is accessible to everyone all over the city.
Table number 3.
Oh, hey, as the non-resident, I'm representing the residents. So, I'm at the stage to tell you what's going on. What?
I asked what did you say?
Oh, I'm a non-resident. Yeah, I live in Springfield. I'm here for community engagement. So I just talk loud. So that's why. All right. So we talked about different things having to do with like policies to help improve traffic safety. So we talked about things such as can we do fines based on income instead of a straight like $200 fine for an infraction, because that would deter the people who can better afford the fines. There's a lot of poor infrastructure for pedestrians. We need to work on the location, and then we spoke a lot about the signage. The lack of where it is, and we need to increase it in places like especially around parks and schools and stuff where there's an increase in pedestrian and bike activity. And we seem to have some arbitrary signage and speed camera postings. We also potentially need to increase the speed cameras, and in sort of reverse psychology, potentially make the fines smaller for those cameras. So that basically have a set amount and then pay more per mile per hour you're speeding over. So kind of give you like, oh, you did this, so it's, and then it would take away from the, oh, you're only doing this because big government and all that. So it's just more of a, hey, it's not about the money, it's you need to slow down behavioral. There's a general lack of understanding of how to use the infrastructure space of like pedestrian stuff, where to cross, when to turn, where to use the road for parking if you're a delivery driver. There's lack of transparency on the speed camera. Once you pay the tickets, where does that go? We also need to work with Secretary of State on some features such as, by the way, we're changing the mile per hour speed limit, things like that, and how to go about reducing the speed limits in general, because obviously everyone wants the speed to get places faster. So how do we deter the human behavior? And we need to increase, as we've been saying, increase the separation of the cars from the bikes and pedestrians. So can we put those big planters so the cars can't even get on the sidewalk or something? And then what are ways we can reach out to the motorists and kind of have representation as opposed to like from a government way? So for example, AAA Chicago Motorist Club. Or we also talked about like delivery drivers, like Pepsi, for example, probably belong to a union. Could we reach out to the union and work on things? And we talked about, is there imagery, like a PSA thing we can show to pedestrians and users of the space of what will happen based on the ramifications of their actions, And then we also looked at the crashes in US versus Europe, and ours are quite awful. Don't look at it if you want to have a good night. So yeah, we just discussed how I had spitballed with FHWA the previous week that we think part of it is, one, they have smaller, lighter cars, and two, most of theirs are stick shift, so you have less distracted driving because you're using both hands. So, did I forget anything? Okay.
Thank you. Table number 4.
Yeah, I could share briefly, and then if you guys want to help me out, I introduced Project Sidewalk, and then we talked about mapping using Project Sidewalk in North Lawndale, and our attendees at the table here had some great ideas about how to connect with groups. Rochelle has a group that I'm going to plan to connect with next, and try to think about involving users and residents in mapping out the conditions of the sidewalk. We can see here, we looked at one of the intersections around Cermak and Ogden, and you see here one of the badly broken sidewalks that someone is trying to walk on the side of the road there, and talked about how we could try to identify funding to help pay residents who would be involved in the mapping as well.
Awesome.
Anything else?
Thank you. And table number 5.
We just walked. Really, trying to get there really fast and then back really fast. So, and I talked a lot, so I don't know.
Did anyone get hit while you were walking?
Nope.
Okay, that's a bonus.
So I know it's a great walk, great conversation, I'm sure, and pretty hot. So thank you, everyone. I only have 2 brief announcements. If you want to go to the next one. So we have a few flyers. This is Envision. They have this amazing volunteer cycling group for people with disabilities. So this is a adapted cycling. So if you want to volunteer, go out across the city and cycle with their group. They have some sign-up sheets, some upcoming rides, and it will be a great way to just plug into a great organization in the city. Again, there's flyers on the table if you're interested, and you can visit their website. The next, yes.
Oh, I thought you were through.
Okay.
My question is for when you're through.
Okay, perfect. The next one, so we have a Union Station online stakeholders or engagement meeting. This is regarding the project at Union Station regarding cycling and adding bike parking. We also have some flyers on the table if you want to take one or scan the QR code to register for the upcoming meeting. And we also have Ish in the back from Amtrak who can also provide any additional information if you have questions. And then I think our last announcement is regarding our next meeting, which will be September 12th. The same time, same Thursday, same time, 6 to 7:30. This time will be in the far south side. We don't have a specific location. It will be somewhere around Pullman. So hopefully for all of you who are online from the far south side, we're coming to you next fall, or this coming fall. Thank you everyone, CDOT staff, and you're welcome to stay. We do need to pack and move around. We also want to thank the Chicago Park District for hosting us. They're pretty gracious with the space. This is a great location. And thank you to everyone to come in. We have a great turnout. Thank you to everyone online for logging in. We appreciate you. Be safe, and we'll see you next quarter. Thank you.